you have missed any show, you can also visit our YouTube channel and you can watch the previous shows which are available on YouTube. And let me just pull this again. If you just give me 1 minute. Yeah. So here is our Saloni, and here is the guest speaker. Over to you, Saloni. Please take us through the journey with Lucia, and we are ready to listen this wonderful conversation. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Gunean. I'm deeply honored with your lovely introduction. Good evening to my Zoom, YouTube, and personal friends for taking time out to attend the 165th episode, consistent, continuous episode of eTalks. When I was asked actually to host the secrets of self-esteem, I was very, very intrigued by the topic itself. Because you know what, the first thing that comes to your mind is, we all know self-esteem. There's no secret about it. So what's the secret that we are trying to share over here? And who is this subject matter expert who will share this with us? And guess what? We have these familiarization calls, which are very brief conversations we have with the guest, keynote speaker, just to get comfortable. And when I had my little conversation with her, the beauty is just her basic, simple chat gave me some insights into what she has to share today. And I got totally glued into her conversation. So I can tell you one thing, based on my sneak peek knowledge from her, that the next 1 hour is going to help you understand a lot of complex dimensions on self-esteem. So we feel self-esteem is no secret, but it is a widely overrated or underrated or misunderstood concept. So friends, I take great pleasure in introducing this versatile keynote speaker of this evening, Dr. Lucia Giovannini. She is a world-renowned sensation, former international Italian supermodel, turned transformational speaker and author of 13 books. Her 25 years of inspiring work crafts a synergy between traditional psychological techniques, motivational practices, and ancient Eastern rituals that turn her seminars into profound experiences for the audiences across Asia and Europe alike. So friends, without any further ado, I present this virtual stage to Dr. Lucia Giovannini. Lucia, over to you.
Thank you, Saloni. Thank you so much. And I'm super excited to be here with you guys. First of all, I want to congratulate you on the wonderful, amazing work that you are doing. And this work that you are doing that really crosses borders and is multidisciplinary is so important right now. So I just, can't say enough of what, how grateful I am and honored I am to be here. So self-esteem. As a coach and a therapist for almost 30 years now, I've noticed how behind almost every problem people have, there's an issue with self-esteem. By addressing the underlying self-esteem issues, we can transform every area of our life. So, of course, we've all experienced moments when we don't feel particularly good about ourselves, and that's human, okay? But when low self-esteem becomes a long-term problem, then it can harm our mental health and our lives. So long-term low self-esteem can affect us in a number of ways. So for example, you might stop trying new things or avoid things that you find challenging. And the thing is, you might not even realize how that low self-esteem issue is the root cause. So for example, you have given up on dating or on finding love because you think women are no good anyway, or men are no good anyway. And you tell yourself that the problem lies with the men or with the women, but in actual truth, the problem is you're struggling with your low self-esteem. Or perhaps you turn down a promotion at work because you think that the new manager will be too difficult to work with. But in actual truth, what's holding you back is low self-esteem. And these are just, a few examples. So, and we will also talk about what is known as high self-esteem might actually be a problem, or might actually not be self-esteem at all, but we'll get to that. So sadly, there's a lot of confusion and misunderstanding around the topic of self-esteem. And I think that that is precisely why it is such a problem for so many people. And I also think that the confusion comes from the term esteem itself. So what does esteem mean? To esteem means to appraise, and it implies making evaluation, okay? So what do we esteem? For example, we want to sell our house, and we ask a real estater to come and value the house, okay, esteem the house, appraise the house. Or we have a piece of jewelry or a car we want to sell, or an antique piece of furniture we want to sell, and we ask for an expert to come and give his value and evaluate that thing, you know. But what is the value of a human being, and which expert will do that appraisal? You know, and of course, I mean, there are so many questions that come to mind. For example, what tool should we use for this kind of measurement? And of course, the answers that I mean come naturally is, who is that expert? We are that expert, okay? So we value ourselves, we appraise our value. And that's fair, okay? Because at the end of the day, we are the person who stays with ourselves 24 hours, who lives with ourselves 24 hours a day. And so we should be the expert on ourselves. But at that point, another question comes to mind, and is, okay, so what tools should we use, okay, for this measurement? And of course, depending on the culture, the appraisal could be measured by money, okay? I have high self-esteem because my bank account is a rich one, or by intelligence or beauty, especially for us women, you know. Designer clothes, comparison with our peers, with our colleagues. And for some people, it's even, you know, how good my kids do at college, for example, or my kids do it in life. So the first question, self-coaching question, is which scale or measurement are you using for yourself? So what do you base your self-esteem on? And because it's very important to be aware of which scale of measurement we are using, because regardless of which method you choose, the problem is that that method is influenced. And most of the times, I would say 100% of the times, is not totally in your power, you know, to control that measure. I just give some examples. Yes, you may feel you have a high self-esteem because of you have a lot of, you know, successes or a lot of success in your work. But what happens if, for many reasons, the COVID, market changes, or any other reason, those success are no more? What happens to your self-esteem? Does your self-esteem plunge down? Or maybe you have a high self-esteem because, especially, I say this because normally in our culture for women, self-esteem is also linked to our physical appearance. And I come from, I mean, in my previous life, I was a model in the last century when I was younger, and I worked for many years, and I had many so-called successes as a model. I traveled the world, etc., etc. But then age comes, you know, you age no matter what. And I mean, that's something you can't do anything about. And so what happens to your self-esteem? And I have lots of ex-colleagues of mine who really went into a depression for that, you know, just by aging. But aging is a natural process of life. What happens if you link your self-esteem to your physical appearance? As you age, you're going to have problems. I mean, and again, your marriage, your house, your car, everything can change. The achievement of your children, the designer labels of your clothes, your social life, performance and at work, and so on and so forth. The risk is that all these conditions are not permanent, and so those conditions may change or may be taken away at any moment. And so what happens is that our ego will do everything to avoid losing these things, because we've attached the meaning of our self-worth to those things. And in the long run, it will cause problems, because we will depend on something external to prove that we are worth something. And so we'll start, identifying with these things. It's my project, my role, my opinion, my job, my children, my marriage, and so on. And if someone dares to attack what we identify with, our immediate reaction is we'll take it as a personal attack. Because if our role, our opinion, our job, our children, our spouse is not worthy, then we are not worthy. And in order to prove to ourselves and others that we are good enough, we will be pushed to continually compare ourselves with others to feel that we are superior. And this leads to a very tricky, kind of relationship with ourselves, because we'll end up eviscerating ourselves with self-criticism when we don't meet our own high standards. And so as soon as our feelings of superiority slip, as they inevitably will sooner or later, our sense of worthiness takes a nosedive. And so we'll swing vividly between an overly inflated and overly deflated self-esteem. So the experience is to live in an emotional roller coaster, okay, that will often result in insecurity, anxiety, depression. So the first secret of self-esteem is understanding this process. And it is understanding, accepting, and embodying that self-esteem is not about, being self-sufficient or having faith in ourselves or feeling that we can do it all, or feeling that if I have, many achievements in my life, then that is high self-esteem. And self-esteem is not even gained when we have the approval of others. So, because true self-esteem doesn't require us to see ourselves as better than others. So that is the first secret. So at this point, the question becomes, okay, and then what is self-esteem? So true self-esteem means being able to embrace ourselves with a sense of kindness and self-compassion. Self-esteem is really love and loving and honoring ourselves. It's an intrinsic self-worth rather than extrinsic self-worth. So it's an intrinsic value that is constantly available to us. It means to celebrate and honor who we are as human beings, regardless of what we do. So it is independent of any external source or of anyone else's approval. So the idea is that we do not have to wait to reach a certain objective or milestone. We can simply decide now to love and honor ourselves in this precise moment. So it is an awareness that no one else can give us, okay? Because it has to come from within, from us. In fact, it's called self-esteem and not esteem from others. So how do we develop this true self-esteem? And that's the third secret. So we've said that the first secret is that it is understanding, accepting, and embodying that self-esteem is not, about what we have, our successes, and all that. The second secret is that true self-esteem is true love, is loving, respecting, kindness and self-compassion, and honoring who we are. So the third secret has to do with how do we develop, this sense of true self-esteem. And the most important step is making a sharp distinction between being and doing. Okay, so in other words, is making a distinction between person and behavior. Okay, so we are much more than our behaviors. We are much more than our achievements, than our actions. Okay, so to make mistakes is normal and is part of the process of learning. So perfectionism blocks action and prohibits personal development. So the idea, when we become kind to ourselves, when we develop self-compassion, then we allow ourselves to be imperfect, to make mistakes, to try and retry, so that we can evolve and improve. But of course, we can do that only if we don't doubt our self-worth. So the idea is that we can make a mistake, but it does not mean that we are a mistake. Okay, if we find ourselves behaving selfishly, we disapprove of our selfishness, but not of ourselves. Okay, if we find ourselves to be incompetent at work, for example, of course we must fight this incompetence, but not fighting ourselves. Okay, we can say or do bad things or selfish things. It may happen, but we are not selfish as a soul, as a person. So when we make this distinction between the being and the doing, then we can keep on loving the being, keep on honoring the being, while changing our doing, while changing our actions. Okay, and so there is no need to keep on, criticizing ourselves. We can criticize our actions, okay, but I know that I'm not my actions. So I can decide that action I'm ashamed of, that action I need to change, that behavior I need to change, that mistake I don't want to do that mistake anymore. Okay, but that doesn't affect the love for who I am. That's the idea. So that is what works miracle in our lives. And I'm not talking about vanity or arrogance, because that's not love or self-esteem at all. That is fear. Okay, that's overcompensating a lack of love. So in order to feel loved, in order to feel that you are worthy, in that sense, you need to be better than others, and that's where the vanity, the arrogance comes from. It comes from fear. It doesn't come from love. So I'm just talking about having great respect for ourselves, and being grateful, for the miracle of our body and our mind. So the first advice I'd like to pass on is really to be aware in the next days, in the next weeks, when you confuse person and behavior. Be aware of those moments when you judge yourself or when you judge others, and when you put yourselves down, and then make the conscious decision to challenge your negative self-talk. Okay, and just love the soul, love the essence of yourself while you address the needs of the behavior. And the last part I want to pass on to give you is the 3 steps to self-esteem. So there are 3 specific steps that really embody what I just taught you, There are practical steps that you can take in your everyday life to keep your, to nourish your self-esteem, the true self-esteem. And this specific path was first developed by neurosemantics, and then I sort of included it in my methodology, A Whole New Life. And I've been teaching it for probably 20 years now. So it is composed of 3 phases, known of the 3 A's, okay? So the first one is acceptance, the second one is appreciation, and the third one is admiration or awe. So 3A. So let's start with acceptance. The idea is that we need to accept the part of ourselves that we are not so proud of. And of course, we all have some. It may be parts of our body, it may be parts of our behavior, it may be experiences in our life, it may be our mistakes. And so, as I said, we all make mistakes because as humans, it's the only way we have to grow and learn. Hopefully, we make new mistakes every time, so we learn something new. We don't like, I don't know about you, I personally don't like making mistakes. It's not something that makes me jump on a chair and say, yes, how nice. But still, I know it's part of being human. So the idea is just to accept it. It's not, I'm not asking you to, I don't know, cheer on your mistakes or on the parts of your body you don't particularly like, but at least stop fighting it, okay? And just accept it as you would accept, I don't know, a day where the weather is not so good, or accepting, I don't know, a chore in your house you don't like particularly, or accept being stuck in traffic. Nobody likes to be stuck in traffic, but we accept it, okay? We don't get mad or start, criticizing everything and everyone. We just, okay, I'm stuck in traffic. Okay, that's the reality. So that's the first step. When we stop, fighting, then we free a lot of energy. Also because when we fight those parts we don't like about ourselves, we are not, those parts we are not proud of, what happens is that we fight ourselves. And it becomes an internal struggle. And who wins in a fight with yourself? Nobody. The second part, so the first part is acceptance. The second part is appreciation. So becoming appreciative of all the good things that we have in life, of all the good parts that are within us, our talents, our, the good part, the good qualities. And we all have many. The problem is that we give them for granted. Even just the fact of being alive, of being able to speak, to see, to hear, to walk, it's already a great gift, okay? And not everybody on the planet has this gift. So the idea is to be appreciative, to be grateful. And the third step is admiration or awe. And of course, admiration and awe are not for, our greatest achievement. We can appreciate our achievement. Every time one of my books, is published, I feel, a kind of, well done, like I appreciate the work I've done. I appreciate the fact that that book will help or has helped thousands and thousands of people, but I'm not in awe or in admiration, okay, of my work. What I'm in awe and admiration of is, our soul, our human soul. And for me, it's not just humans. I'm in admiration of animal soul, plant soul, Mother Earth, a beautiful sunset, this beautiful creation. And we are part of this beautiful creation. So the idea is really to reconnect with that sense of connection, of admiration, for life itself. And we are part of that life. Okay. So the idea is to develop a deep respect for the mystery of who we are as living beings. And this changes the game when we walk through life with this kind of feeling. Everything becomes a miracle. It becomes, so from that perspective, it's also easier to see our little successes and to start, to appreciate those. And from that, point of view, from that perspective, it's even easier to accept the things that are not quite what we would like to have or to be. Because we know that there's a way to change things slowly, maybe. And acceptance, I want to go back to acceptance just a little more. It does not mean resignation. There's a big difference between resignation, I can't do anything and I'm feeling helpless, and accepting. Accepting is a much more active, full of acceptance has power, because when I accept a situation, even when I accept a mistake or a downfall, then I know that I take the situation in my hand and I can change things. If I just say, okay, there's nothing I can do, okay, but internally I haven't made that shift into acceptance, then I feel powerless and I feel as a victim. I start to blame others, etc., etc. And so this is why acceptance is so powerful, because it's the first step to really taking our life into our hands. And then, of course, appreciation and admiration. So this is basically, in a nutshell, this is the road to self-esteem and the 3 secrets to self-esteem.
Thank you, Lucia. I personally can't thank you enough for this knowledge, because it will, I'm sure, help not only me, but everyone who's listening in this room, in the YouTube channel now, later, to overcome some of our limiting beliefs and or even clear some of our misconstrued notions about something as fundamental as self-esteem. However, there are a couple of questions that are just buzzing in my head, and I'm sure it's the same for the others as well. So with your kind permission, if I may jump into a few questions and you could help us get some answers in probably 2 to 3 minutes per question. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. So what was interesting is that you connected self-esteem with a lot of extrinsic factors as you spoke along. But for me personally, self-esteem is very, very intrinsic by nature, which you said it should be. But I realized when I heard you talk that I tend to correlate it very, very directly with self-respect. And when I say I'm high on self-esteem, which I think I have believed to be all my life, I very directly related to that's my self-respect. Is there a difference, or it's literally the same synonym?
Well, self-respect is definitely part of self-esteem, yes. So it means, for example, so on a higher level, on a more global level or spiritual level, respecting your soul, respecting your mission in life and trying to bring it forward. On a more down-to-earth level or psychological level, it means setting your boundaries, for example, knowing when to say no, or knowing when to speak your truth, for example, how to speak your truth, etc. So definitely, in my experience, this is a big part of it, of course. It is the other part is self-compassion and self-love. So self-respect is a component, important, totally important component. The other part is self-compassion, because the risk otherwise is to end up being a little bit harsh on ourselves, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely right. And I hear this a lot. And I can completely relate to this part you're saying about having a high self-esteem, associating it with self-respect. But in the process, you set your own standards so unreasonably high that you forget to show that compassion to yourself, which you extend to other people around you potentially. And it may also stand the risk of probably being a little low on empathy,
Yes.
because you've set the bar so high overall in your own mind and life.
Exactly.
So it
Exactly.
can go.
So we can look at it, if you wish, in a yin yang energy, you know, masculine and feminine. Or so the self-respect is more, okay, I know who I am, I know what I want, I know my values, I respect, you know, me and I know how to communicate this, how to avoid someone exploiting me, or you know, all this kind of, which is a very direct and in brackets, okay, young or masculine energy, which is okay. And I'm not saying, when I say masculine or feminine, I'm not relating into it to men or women. I'm just, you know, talking about the two energies that are woven within us. The other part is the self-love. It's a more rounded energy. It's a more compassionate energy. You know, what happens when we don't reach those high standards, or even when we reach them, okay, even when we reach them, there's also a higher level we would like to go.
Right. Don't pause and celebrate success.
Yeah.
Then it goes a notch above. And
Yeah.
it's always above your own expectations. You always have higher expectations than it is in the current situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a full self-esteem is composed of the two parts. Okay.
Right. Right. So we all very universally, commonly are aware of low self-esteem and high self-esteem, but there is a third one which we don't speak of much, which is inflated esteem. How is that different, and how do you recognize that?
Yeah, so that is actually, it's not esteem at all. As you said, it's inflated because it comes from fear and not from love. It is in psychology, we have a terminology which is hypercompensating, which is when there is a lack, there is a void, and then we compensate that void, going high on the opposite. So it's when we never doubt ourselves, for example. Okay, I know how this needs to be done. And maybe someone says, well, it could be done another way. No, I know it. I know, you know, because we can't allow anyone or even ourselves to doubt our value, because otherwise our card castles would crumble and and so
Usually associated with ego. We say inflated ego.
Yes.
So this is something close to that, is it?
Yes, yeah, absolutely correct.
Got it.
So it's when we linked our value to normally it may happen because we linked our value to some external factors. Okay, so we need to defend those external, I don't know, my role in the company, my authority, you know, and then because my esteem comes from the fact that I reach that level in the company or in the family, it doesn't matter, within, you know, within a certain situation. And then if you challenge my role, then it means you're challenging me. Then you're challenging. Yeah, someone said Donald Trump. Yes. It means you're challenging my world, me. And if that is challenged, then I lose all my value, and then I lose the concept I have of myself, and then there's nothing left, and then I can't let it happen, and then I fight, you know. So
That's from insecurities of some sort or the other, right?
yes, it's insecurity, it's lack of, you know, basically lack of self-esteem, except that to an external world, it seems that that person has a lot of self-esteem, but in fact it doesn't. It's an inflated ego, but
Right. Interesting. It's also entwined if you go to see. That is very easy to go, overlap all of this in terms of behavior. When you are in behavior, it all comes together sometimes. And that takes me to the next thought that's coming to my mind, which is okay, fine. Okay, I'll talk about myself. People say I'm high on self-esteem, but there are some corners of my life where I feel I'm also low on self-esteem in these aspects, probably based on the experiences I may have in those areas. So is it possible for a human being to have self-esteem which is high and low in the same life? Or is it typically either low or high only?
No, I mean, we are not machines, we are human beings.
Yeah.
So it may happen, depending on, if those areas are areas where maybe we have more conditioning from our families, for example, from our childhood, or in certain areas there are more wounds that we carry about that area. So maybe we tend to protect ourselves more. And then there are lots of factors that are intertwined here. uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so the idea is really but again, the idea is really to be aware, okay, of what is happening, because for me the first step, the first door to any evolutionary change, which is positive change for the positive, whether in an organization or at personal level, is awareness. Because if we are not aware, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing, I mean, everything is happening unconsciously, and then we
Yes.
have no power on our life. But so from the
Yes.
moment we are aware of the pattern that is underlying of what is happening, we can see, okay, in that area those patterns arise. In that area my behavior is maybe the opposite, because I feel the need to protect myself. Just to give an idea, I feel the need for my inner protector to be stronger there. Okay, what can I do to then rebalance things, for example? And really these three steps: accept what is happening, maybe avoid personalization, thinking that even when things happen, people maybe are not so nice, they have something against you, they want to threaten you, and maybe it's just their nature, and they're not particularly wanting to threaten you, but it's their nature. Accepting, and then at the same time appreciating your talents, your power, your or even what is good in your life, and then developing this sense of, the third step is basically opening your heart chakra.
Very true. I can relate to that because I am into meditation to some extent, thanks to the 5 a.m. club. So I know the portion on chakras. And friends, if you've not experienced that, I cannot tell you how gentle, soft, and powerful all these techniques are. And that comes to the next point in my head, which is you've given us some valuable tips on how to correct our esteem levels. But is there some program that you conduct or you aware of on self-esteem?
Yes, I do. Well, before the COVID, I used to also conduct some live,
Oh,
of course, but now I actually conducted, not on self-esteem, but on change and on breathwork. I conducted a program in Dubai in December. For the first time, and I like Dubai so much. I said, I want to come back and to do more programs there, but then the COVID hit. So but anyway, I do, yes, there is actually one, I created this program, this online program, which is available on my website, luciagiovannini.com. And you can find it under courses or work with me, I think. And it's online courses, and there is the self-esteem course, and it's very, very well done. It contains a lot of exercises, guided visualizations, meditation for all the steps. So you're really, people are really guided step by step through the process.
that's really useful because sometimes we need that structure to be able to reframe ourselves correctly. So thanks for that. We also know that you've an author of 13 books. You are a renowned writer, and you have this book going on, which is really making it doing the rounds. So, would you like to share something on that and tell us that this whole thing that we are trying to discuss now, will your books help us delve deeper? Is there your latest edition? Does that speak about the self-esteem angle as well? Would you like to say something on it? Because I know it has come out in different languages and in Arabic and English as well.
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's called A Whole New Life. And
Right.
it's part of my method, A Whole New, actually, it's the base of my method, A Whole New Life. And A Whole New Life is a book about change. The idea, the goal of the book is to help people uh, create change, create the changes they want in their lives, personal life, professional lives, and also face change, because sometimes change happens, life pushes us, into a change, into a forced change, and then we need to deal with it. And so the book, again, it's full of exercises and ideas and examples, and it has a structured process to go through change. And within that process, there's quite a few, I mean, a whole chapter and quite a few parts where I talk about self-esteem, because of course, self-esteem is deeply
Interesting.
related to change.
So that is also an alternate mechanism. If not courses, then people can even refer to your book or books on that to kind of strip this off further. And speaking of which, interestingly, I picked on this when we spoke yesterday and we were just familiarizing. You mentioned you've written 4 books on veganism. So I'm just having this thought that you are a doctor in psychology and in counseling, and as an author of 4 vegan books, do you think there is a correlation between dietary consumption and self-esteem? I mean, we hear physiology is everything and what we consume is what we are. Is there any correlation between these factors?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, if you
Really?
think, yeah, there are so many studies around this. Just to give you an idea, there was a recent study done in a little city in Ohio, at the penitentiary, the juvenile jail, where they had these kids, very difficult kids, and I mean, lots of riots, and so they had tried everything. And at the end, they tried with the diet. They just changed their diet. So they removed, of course, refined sugar and meat. Okay. And there, like in a few months, their behavior changed completely. I mean, they didn't become angels, of course, but the riots were no more. They were more focused at school. They were more, able to communicate just with changing the diet. And here in Italy as well, we have quite a few researchers on that. And of course, it makes sense, because animals, when they are brought to the slaughterhouse, they are sentient beings. They know what's going to happen. They see the other animals being slaughtered in front of them, and they are in fear, and they emit a lot of adrenaline and cortisol, which are the hormones of stress and fear. And so when we eat meat, that's what we eat. We eat stress and fear hormones. And so I think that there is enough, energy of stress and fear in the world without, nourishing ourselves, without eating and filling ourselves with those hormones, even from the food we eat. So it's really so.
It's when we have a belief change. I was a hardcore non-vegetarian and I've turned veg a year and a half back. So it's interesting when you have a belief change and which completely changes the way you have your lifestyle changes. And then when it has an impact on your entire demeanor and how you look at everything in life, it's just amazing how all this connects together eventually.
Yeah, yeah, and also the fact that one, as we said, one main step in self-esteem is opening your heart chakra and developing this love,
Right.
compassion. So, and then you eat animals. I mean, it, So, of course, if you are vegan or vegetarian, this compassion life, this compassionate energy is more available to you.
Interesting. One last thing before we start wrapping up, especially for the YouTube audiences, how does esteem, be it high or low, affect relationships, especially companionships, marriages, considering the traditional environment we are in India, the Indian culture, the Arabic culture? How does any one side of the tilt, low or high, self-esteem affect relationships for the person on the receiving end and the giving end?
Yeah, well, it affects it a lot, because when we don't have that self-love, that love and respect for ourselves and appreciation from ourselves, we will be dependent on others to give us that love. And so we expect another person to fill that void. But it's an unfillable void, because unless we feel it, we are able to feel it ourselves, and of course find our spiritual connection, so that also spirit can feel it. There's no person in the whole world that can honestly, sustainably fill that void. So of course it's lack of self-esteem or problems in self-esteem is really it will bring problems to the relationship.
In fact, that reminds me of what we learn in meditation. Life is about looking inside out and not from outside in, and most of us do it the other way around. So if internally you are tight, you will look at the world that way, or relationships that way, instead of depending on the outside world and people to make us feel better. We will look at it differently because we are controlling it from our spirit. So I totally get what you said. On that note, actually come to the last question of this evening. I want to genuinely know, what's your feedback for our platform? What do you think about coming back to some with us and all of that?
So I like your platform so much. I like, as I said, I think you're doing an amazing work, really amazing, and so needed in this not easy, I don't want to say difficult, but in this unprecedented period we are all living. And I'm very glad to come back to
awesome. So on that note, I would sincerely like to thank our YouTube audience on behalf of Lucia, Yash, the eTalks team, and your host and host Saloni. Please do subscribe to our YouTube link and watch this space for more. The Zoom audiences can please continue to stay online and add any further questions that you may have in the chat box, or you could raise your hand in there, and Lucia will try her best to answer in about 10 minutes.